Have you ever heard of something so dominant that it just seems statistically impossible? Well, that's exactly what we're talking about today. We're going to dive into the story of a high school football coach who created an offensive system so powerful, it didn't just win games, it completely broke the record books and even changed the rules of the sport itself. It all starts with this number right here, 880. That is the number of points that a single high school football team scored in just one season back in 1994. Now, to put that into perspective, think about it. That's an average of more than 62 points per game. Over a perfect 14-game season, that's like scoring 9 touchdowns every single time you step on the field. It was an offensive onslaught that high school football had just never, ever seen before. And here's the real kicker. He didn't do it with a team full of 5-star recruits and future NFL superstars. So the question you've got to be asking is, how did this coach, Don Markham, engineer a system that could turn a team of seemingly average players into an absolutely unstoppable force? Okay, let's get into it. To really understand the system, you first have to understand the man. And Don Markham's story, well, it begins in a very, very unlikely place. For 5 years, Markham was an officer with the LAPD. He was even one of the first responders to the horrific Manson family murders, a scene that he said never really left him. But all the while, he was also coaching Pop Warner on the side, and his passion for the game was just all-consuming. His real focus wasn't on the police beat. It was on figuring out how to get just enough sleep so he could get back on the football field. Eventually, his bosses at the LAPD basically gave him an ultimatum, because he was taking so much time off for coaching. And for him, the choice was simple. In his own words, when they asked, he told them straight up, "I was a football coach." And that decision, well, it would go on to change the game forever. So he dedicated his entire life to coaching and to perfecting this one system that would become his trademark. Let's break down exactly what this offensive machine looked like. He called it the double wing offense. Now, at a time when a lot of teams were starting to get fancy, spreading out and throwing the ball all over the field, Markham went in the complete opposite direction. This was old school smash-mouth football, but with a brilliant modern twist. The entire goal was just to use brute force and clever angles to completely overwhelm the defense at one specific spot. The genius was really in the details. He'd pack his linemen in super tight, almost foot to foot, so defenders couldn't shoot the gaps. Then he'd have 2 running backs, the wing backs, ready to just explode forward. And because the whole formation is symmetrical, the defense has absolutely no clue which way the play is going until it's way too late, especially because Markham would have them snap the ball almost instantly after sending a player in motion. No time to adjust. So let's just walk through his signature play, the power pitch. First, you get that instant snap right after the motion, which confuses everybody. Then, the linemen create this wall by double-teaming defenders. Linemen from the other side of the line actually pull around to lead the play, creating even more blockers. The fullback's job is to take out the very last defender on the edge. And finally, the quarterback just pitches the ball to the wingback who sprints through this massive alley created by all his teammates. It was pure, simple, physical domination. So the crazy thing is, this system didn't work because it was complex. It worked because of its philosophy. Markham's teams didn't have 100 different plays. Nope. They had a handful that they practiced over and over and over again until they were absolutely flawless. It was all about creating a numbers advantage at the point of attack and just physically wearing down the other team. It wasn't about one superstar. It was about 11 guys working as a perfect, brutal unit. And this brilliant system wasn't just some one-hit wonder. Let's take a look at how this thing pretty much took over the sport wherever it went. His success was immediate, and it lasted for decades. From his very first championship in California, way back in 1971, to, get this, dominating in Europe with the Helsinki Roosters in the late 80s, the double wing was a winning formula. But it was his time at Bloomington High School in the 90s that turned him into a national legend. That legendary 1994 season, the one where they scored 880 points, it ended with a perfect 14-0 record and a championship. Untouchable. And if you really want to see the system's incredible power, look at this. The year before Markham arrived, Bloomington High School won a single game. One. In his very first season, they didn't lose it all and shattered the national scoring record. That isn't just a turnaround, that's a flat-out revolution. His offense was so ridiculously dominant that while he was coaching up in Oregon, the state literally had to invent a new rule to stop his teams from running up the score. They called it the Bandon Rule, some even called it the Don Markham Rule, a mercy rule that ended the game as soon as a team was ahead by 45 points. Over a 45-year career that took him to 10 different high schools and even across oceans, Markham racked up an unbelievable 312 wins. His system wasn't a fluke. It was a proven, certified powerhouse. But, his impact went so much further than just the wins and losses on a scoreboard. He basically created a movement. After that record-breaking 1994 season, coaches from all over the country flocked to his clinics just to learn the system. He mentored young coaches, he inspired opponents who'd been absolutely crushed by his teams, and he sparked this huge grassroots movement dedicated to his brand of football. And his dedication, it was just relentless. He was diagnosed with cancer around 2008, and he just kept on coaching for another 6 years. He even took over a struggling program when he was 73 years old, only stepping down when his health absolutely forced him to. The man just loved building winners. But ultimately, his biggest impact was felt by his players. Cheyenne Caldwell, who was a running back on that record-breaking 94 team, he really said it best. Markham didn't just give them a playbook. He gave them belief. His legacy is crystal clear. He gave underdog schools a real fighting chance. He proved that old-school fundamentals could still dominate modern schemes, and he created a coaching tree that continues to spread his philosophy to this day. He literally forced everyone to rethink the game. And all of this leaves us with one final thought. Don Markham's entire career just seems to be the answer to this one question. In a sports world that is obsessed with finding the next superstar athlete, he proved that maybe, just maybe, the most powerful thing in sports isn't the player at all, but the system they play in.